What you must do to escape the 3D matrix. Only spiritual warriors will be able to escape 3D. And the tragic reason many will choose to stay trapped. Hello my friends, welcome back to the channel. This is Mahadev, the Thunder Wizard, and I'm going to be sharing with you some really important understandings. If you are struggling, if you are going through major struggles right now, you are not alone. I mean, the energy that is hitting the earth right now is unbelievable. I mean, I got blasted with the solar energy that hit today. Today is Tuesday the 13th, so I assume you're feeling it as well. So make sure you watch this entire video before, because I'm going to say things that are going to make you react. Probably you're not going to like a lot of things I'm going to say. So make sure that you listen with an open mind and operate from what you want, not what you think you know. Stay tuned. All right, my friends, are you prepared? First, before we get into this, let me say that what is coming, this 5D shift that is coming, is going to be beyond anything you can even begin to comprehend. In terms of bliss, joy, the energy, everything, what is beyond this third dimension. This third dimension is an upside down bizarro world. Everything here is opposite of what it is in higher dimensions. So, I'm going to say some things that are going to be challenging for some people to hear. So before we get into that, it's important that you understand what is waiting for us. I know because I've experienced it. I'm not a cult leader. I'm not here to teach a religion. I'm not a prophet, I'm not a channeler, but I have experienced what is coming. So I'm telling you from what I know I've experienced from it. So anyway, I'm not expecting you to just simply believe me. The whole point of this channel is to give you the tools to have that experience yourself. But if you haven't had that yet, stay tuned. I believe I can give you some information that will help you if you have the ability to hear it. And some people just can't hear it. Well, we're going to talk about that. I'm going to be sharing with you some comments that were left in the channel. And the only reason I do that is because if one person takes the time to write these comments, it means a lot of people feel it. And so this needs to be addressed. And your experiences, your feelings need to be addressed and validated. It doesn't mean that you don't need to shift and change your understanding or your attitude or your actions in order to experience the bliss and the beauty that I'm talking about. But it is important that your experience and your feelings be addressed and validated. And I am going to do that. So stay till the end. If you want what I'm talking about, stay till the end of this video. All right, so let us first take a look at my list here, because I usually wait too long to get to my list. So let's get to my list to give you the basics of what I'm talking about, and then I'm going to share a very interesting comment, and I'm going to address the person's arguments in those comments. All right, so only warriors will escape the 3D matrix. So let me first just acknowledge to you that I, like everybody else, I would love to just simply sit back on the couch and wait for the 5D shift to come. I want the solar flash to come and tickle me and make me giggle and have it be wonderful and just a giant orgasm for the whole world. And I would love for that. If I could snap my fingers and make that what happens, that's how I would do that. But that's not what is going to happen, and that's not what is happening. What is happening is that warriors are fighting for their ascension. And what you're fighting against is not another person. It's not the deep state. It's not political opponents. It's not the devil. It is your own programmed attachment to the third dimension. So understand that nobody would be able to incarnate into the third dimension if the third dimension didn't have within it a programming system which programmed you into believing that your survival depended upon you being programmed to this bizarro upside down world. So you have been programmed. The third dimensional mind, the third dimensional brain, the third dimensional body has been programmed to accept this completely ridiculous, bizarro, upside down world. So you have to accept that even though your soul is telling you this is wrong, this isn't right, your brain and your body, your unconscious is telling you your survival depends upon you allowing yourself to be programmed into this third dimensional video game. So what you have to fight against is that programming, and that will be as if you are fighting for your life. You will feel that you are dying if you go against it. So the reason why we use the word warriors is people who go to war are walking into battle knowing that they might die as a result. That what's more important to them is the idea that they're fighting for. That is more important than saving their own physical life. If you want to go to 5D, going to 5D has to be more important to you than your survival in this third dimension. You can't have it both ways. I'm sorry, but that's just the fact of the matter. So you have to be a warrior or you won't make it. The good news is don't beat yourself up. I'm just as frightened as anybody else. I'm just as human as anybody else. So if I can do it, you can do it. And if you want it, I can help you. I can teach you how. But you have to make the decision. You have to say, I'm willing to die to my 3D attachments. I'm willing to go through that ego death. If you're willing to do that, I can help you. If you're not, there's nothing I can do for you. All right, so 5D ascension is not salvation. It is earned. And this is why religion was invented. Religion, especially the Abrahamic religions, are brilliant ways to control the masses. So, people really want to believe in the Christian religion. People will, even if they throw out 90% of it, they'll throw out the hell, they'll throw out the sin, they'll throw out all of the other crazy stuff, but they want to believe that Jesus existed. They'll say Jesus, wasn't who they told you he was. He was actually this, and they still want to believe that he died on the cross, and they still want to believe that he brings salvation and he is the path to salvation. Why do people want to believe in that so much? I did. Again, people get mad at me and they say, you don't know, I hope you find Jesus. I did. I was a devout Christian my entire childhood and into my early adulthood, and I was going to become a minister. I was going to become an evangelist. I was going to be one of those guys and I was one of those guys that went on the street and preached on the street. I was going to have, go around the world and evangelize and save the world. So I know exactly what the mindset of the Christian is. But it is the most brilliant tactic for teaching you to accept the slavery of the third dimension. Because what does Jesus tell you to do? He tells you to carry your cross. He even says, obey your masters. You don't believe it? Those of you? I mean, this is one of, how is it that, people who used to be slaves, literally used to be slaves, how is it they worship that guy who tells them, obey your masters? It's right there in the New Testament. I'm not making that up. The Jesus tells you to pay your taxes. Don't believe that? That was one of the main things that he said. That was what set him apart. That was one of the reasons why the Jews back in the day didn't accept him. Because they knew that paying taxes to a foreign invader was blasphemy. Now they were almost right. Giving away yourself for an external collective is self-hatred. And so the Jews didn't buy into Jesus because he said, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's and give unto God what is God. So he was saying that was created by the elites. They tried to get the Jewish Messiah to tell the Jewish people to pay taxes to the Roman invaders. And from a Jewish perspective, if you've got your face on a coin, it makes you a god, it makes you an idol. And they can't worship an idol. So they wouldn't pay their taxes, they wouldn't even use Roman coins. So people don't understand that the whole Jesus thing was about making you a slave to the collective. I don't know how I got off on that, but. So ascension is not salvation, it is earned. That's what I was going. So ascension isn't something that you wait around and God comes and gives it to you. Your salvation is earned. And again, that's blasphemy to Christians. Christians say you can't earn anything. God has to give it to you. Not only that, but you have to then allow yourself to be mentally programmed. Christianity is the only religion that is based on belief only. As long as you intellectually accept whatever we tell you, God will love you. And I'm telling you, ascension has nothing to do with believing what you're told, not even believing what I tell you. I don't expect anybody to accept anything I say at face value. I do encourage you to prove it through experience. And if you follow my suggestions and do what I'm suggesting you to do, you will have an experience. So ascension is not salvation, it is earned. Odin, the antithesis of the Christian Jesus sacrifice. Odin's sacrifice wasn't to anything other than himself. He sacrificed himself to himself, meaning he died to his ego 3D attachment. And it was a death. So the spiritual war that you are fighting is a spiritual war. You are dying to your 3D attachment. It will be painful. It will be a death. It will be the worst kind of death. The death of the ego. The death of your attachments. I wish it were different, but those are the facts. And I could go, talk for hours about what I've experienced and what I've seen. But I know from my own personal experience that it is a continuous death to my ego, and it is a war. So it's not earned. Odin died, sacrificed himself to himself. And as a result, the secrets of the universe were revealed to him, and then he became king of the gods. Now, unlike the Christian tradition where Jesus died for you, you don't have to do it. Odin is the opposite. Odin says, I did it, now it's your turn. You want what I have? You got to do what I do. That's what Odin says. Jesus says, don't worry, you wouldn't be able to handle it. I'll do it for you. Just sit back, believe, let me do the work, you worthless piece of crap. I love you. That's Jesus. Odin says, you do it. I can see that you can do it. I can see that you have the power. I showed you. I did it for myself. I didn't do it for you. I did it for me. But you can have what I have if you do what I do. If you want my help, I'll tell you how to do it. But you got to go do it. 5D ascension is attained through ego death. We already talked about that. 5D residents, the beings that live in 5D, are traitors to the third dimension. Let's talk about that for a moment. When I first started communicating with higher dimensional beings, the first experience I had after having my mind blown and I was, taken to other dimensions and all that, and I came back, I then had a response a day later. And I found myself feeling like a traitor. I felt guilty. And I felt as though I was betraying the human race. And at one point, when I was communicating with these beings, I said, "You're destroying my world." And my thought was that they were destroying the world, that they were these evil things that were coming to destroy the world. Now, the truth of the matter is that they're not doing any of that. They already live in 5D. They don't need to destroy anything. They're fine. But I was destroying my world. But it goes even beyond that. That's why if you haven't read my books, go to Michael William Denny, Denney, and get my books, especially Interdimensional Revolution, because this is a revolution. And you are fighting a war, and you are destroying the third dimension. And the feeling that you are a traitor to your fellow humans is accurate. Because what 3D humans want is to create a collective, a hive mind, where you don't have any individuality. That's how the third dimension has been. It has been that way for as long as we can remember. You're born into a class, you have to work your ass off all day long for somebody else. You're given just enough to survive, even if you're a so-called free American, where you still have to go off and work 40 hours a week for some company to make money for them. You still have to, even if you're a business owner, you still have to create a business which then gives to the greater collective. That doesn't matter if you're living in, democratic United States or if you're living in communist China. You have a job to do, and if you don't do that job, you don't live. Your job is to be a worker, a slave. That is the third dimension. It has always been that way. So to live in 5D means that you are rebelling against that slavery, and you are betraying your fellow humans. There's a reason why. The elites are so angry, and why you weren't allowed to speak against certain things you were told to do. Because if you did, they were right. They would say you're harming the collective. They're absolutely right. You go against the programming, you destroy the cohesion of the collective. So instead of trying to dodge that, just accept that. That's what we're doing. We are fighting against the collective. We are fighting against the hive mind. We are fighting against being devalued and being treated like objects and slaves. So that is an accurate experience. 5D ascension is attained through ego death. 5D residents are 3D traitors. 5D is a revolution. You must choose between love of self versus love of collective. Again, this goes opposite from religion. Even now, people talk about, love and light, and I don't have an ego. When people talk about ego death, they mean the opposite of what I mean. Ego isn't about self. Ego comes from the collective. When you are born in this world is trying to program you to gain your sense of lovability, gain your value, gain your relevance by being accepted by the collective. What happens when you're a kid? You get to do whatever you want up until you're about 4 years old. And then when you get to be about 4 years old, what happens? You're sent to nursery school. Then you're sent to kindergarten. Then you're sent to elementary school. Then junior high school. Then high school. And then college. And then graduate school. And then you spend the rest of your life working. And then you have to do things like, people think, again, it blows my mind, people think that having a mortgage means you own a house. Doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that. But they believe, not only do they believe that they have worth if they have a mortgage, but they believe that they're now a worthwhile part of society. Well, we have to be part of society. You have to own a home. You have to blah, blah, blah. You have to squeeze out kids. You have to blah, blah, blah. We are programmed from birth to gain the love and approval of the collective. So living in 5D means that your first love is to your own soul. Now, here's the ironic part. If you truly love your own soul, you will also love others. You will gain pleasure from other people finding their soul. And then when everybody's operating from their soul, they will feel and be connected. Whereas in the third dimension, if you gain your worth by throwing yourself away to be part of the collective, you will be separated from yourself, which means you will be separated from other people. And then you have to have laws, because when people are separated from themselves, they become sociopathic, and they don't have empathy for anybody else, which is why people commit crimes. People who commit crimes are sociopaths. They don't have any empathy for the people that they're harming. So that's the ironic part. When you live for the approval of others, you become a sociopath, and then you have to have laws, because otherwise sociopaths do whatever the hell they want. Whereas, ironically, if you live for your own soul and you seek only to give your soul joy and happiness, you will then connect to the energy that is connecting all conscious beings together, and then hurting yourself and hurting other people, you wouldn't do anything to harm somebody else because it would hurt you. So you must choose between love of self versus love of collective. And when you choose yourself, you will be rebelling. You will be a traitor, and you will feel guilt and you will feel fear, because the manipulation and the abuse is that the collective says, if you don't do what we tell you, we won't let you work, we won't let you eat, we won't let you sleep. Which is what happened when, what happened? People couldn't work, people couldn't travel. And if you don't work, you don't have money. If you don't have money, you don't, and if they had their way, they would keep you from having access. If you don't, this is the whole digital currency thing. Centralized digital currency. If you don't do what you're told, they can take away all your money. They can still do that. By the way, they can do that now. They have access to the banks, and if you don't do, we saw this in, Canada when the trucker revolt. The government stepped in and took their money away. So they can still do that in a free society, in a democratic society. So that's the threat. If you don't do what you're told, we won't let you survive. So your fear of survival, combined with your codependent need to be loved and accepted by things outside of you, that's what keeps society cohesive. 5D says, screw that. 5D says, love your soul first. Do what your soul wants. And when you do that, You will be ostracized from the collective, the 3D collective. But when you do that, you open up a portal to higher dimensions. And there are beings in the 5th dimension and above who love their souls. And as a result, when they see you loving your soul, you will now become part of it. This is the shift. The shift is an internal job. It happens internally. I'm going to, again, this story from, one of my heroes, Dr. Joe Dispenza. You've heard me talk about this story, but it's worth repeating. He was doing a seminar on tapping into the pineal gland, which, by the way, you can't tap into the pineal gland without tapping into your soul, in case you didn't know. Which is, by the way, why the Vatican has that statue of the pine cone. They have that symbol everywhere. That's why they wear the hat. What they mean is that we've tapped into the secret. You don't get it. We own it. We own your pineal gland. You won't have access to it. That's what all that means. But so he was doing a seminar about meditation to tap into the pineal gland. And while he was doing it, he started noticing that around the hall there were these light beings, these tall beings of light. They were surrounding the hall. And he wasn't sure, I'm assuming, I don't remember. The feeling I got was that he wasn't sure if he was, imagining things. And other people started seeing it. They said, "Do you see that?" And so he talked to them and contacted them and said, "Why don't you join us?" And the being said, "We want to, but we can't. Because if we lower our vibration, our frequency to where you are, that would be damaging to us. And we love ourselves too much to damage ourselves." I'm going to repeat that. We love ourselves too much to damage ourselves. But if you raise your frequency, we will meet you halfway. That is the 5th dimension. That is the ascension. That we're getting hit with this solar wave, which is forcing you to move in one direction or another. It is either forcing you to rebel and become a traitor to the human race and focus on your soul, or you will respond defensively and you will go deeper into your attachment of being a victim and being part of the collective. There's the only two responses that you're capable of doing when you're getting hit with this. You can no longer just be in the middle, live a spiritual life, pay your taxes, do the thing, be in the 3rd dimension, but be spiritual. You can't do that anymore. It's not going to work. Don't believe me? Just tap in for a second to the way that you feel. I'm not making this up, right? This is hitting you. It's hitting everybody. So that's a perfect example. To get to 5D means you have to love your soul. When you love your soul, you will have to die to your 3D ego, which is about getting love and approval from things outside of you. You will have to die to that. You will have to sacrifice yourself to yourself. You'll have to let go of the victim mentality. We'll talk about that when I look at the quote. Victim mentality is programmed. Revolution is conscious. So if you don't do anything, your 3D programming will kick in and you will tap into your victim mentality. See, the ironic thing is many of the people who talk about escaping the matrix and want to talk about the dark force elites and the deep state and all that, they actually want to create a victim scenario that cannot be overcome. We're going to talk about that. But that's what the belief in reptilians is. That's what the belief in Anunnakis is. That's what the belief in dark or false beings of light trapping you into reincarnation. That is a programmed response. That is lying to you, that is making you believe that you are seeing the truth and that you are rebelling against the dark forces, but actually that is creating a victim mentality, which then will force you to accept your role as being a victim. You can complain all you want. Listen, the dark forces don't care if you're miserable. They don't care if you complain. fact, they want you to fight with each other. They want riots in the streets. They want warfare. They love that because that keeps you in a state of victim mentality, but you think you're fighting against it. So victim mentality is programmed. Revolution is conscious. Consciousness means conscious of the soul, not giving me a list of all the ways that the dark forces are abusing you. I know of many of them, and it blows my mind the more I find out. So I'm not saying don't be educated about what's happening, but thinking that you're finding freedom because you can list all the ways you're being enslaved. Slaves have been doing that forever. I mean, anybody who's ever lived actual slavery, they can list all of the ways that they are enslaved, and they don't like it, and they complain about it, but that victim mentality allows them to stay enslaved. In fact, oftentimes when you release an enslaved population, they still carry a slave mentality into, and then, anyway, we can talk about that, but that's a whole other subject. But the point is that just because you think you know what's going on, and you think that you know how you're being enslaved, and then you start to conflate and to create it and project it spiritually, to believe that spiritually you are enslaved, that is your unconscious mind keeping you there. So knowing that you've been programmed to be enslaved by the humans that are programming you is one thing. Believing that 5D is trying to enslave you, that is a whole other belief. We'll get into that. You have to choose. Consciousness means that you have a conscious connection to higher dimensions and you know what they are. So this is how I know somebody's been in higher dimensions. If somebody has been to higher dimensions and talks about how you can be free, you're enslaved here, but you can be free, I know they've been to a higher dimension. If, however, they tell you that beings in higher dimensions are forcing you to reincarnate, I know they've never left the third dimension. So it doesn't matter if they talk about ETs or if they talk about light beings or if they channel the Arcturians or whatever. If they tell you that there are dark forces out there, that there are evil ETs out there, or there are false beings of light or reptilians that are keeping you trapped in here, they've never left the third dimension. Now, you don't know that, and you don't have to take my word for it. I know that because I've experienced it. I mean, what is waiting for us out there is beyond belief. And the truth is that when you experience true freedom, when you experience the level of blissful, intense, orgasmic love that is waiting for you, that is what it's like to live outside of the third dimension. When you experience that and you come back, it's traumatic, because it destroys your third dimensional reality. And remember, the third dimension wants to maintain itself. You will think you are dying. Your mind will rebel against being loved. We're going to talk about that because I'm going to be sharing with you a comment from somebody who really wants to talk about how they've been mistreated. And what is underneath that is the need to feel abused, because to even begin to accept the idea that there is blissful love waiting for you is so frightening to this person that they self-righteously and vehemently want to argue with me about it. They want to believe that the universe is evil and wants to destroy them. And even when you tell them, here's a way out, they will reject it. Why? Because it is traumatic to your third dimensional self to accept true love. It is traumatic, and you will fight to the death to hold on to your 3D ego. It's the opposite of Odin. You're not sacrificing, you're not dying. Dying is painful. This transition is not an easy one. I wish it were otherwise. And I don't wish a difficult transition on anybody. People can, little kids are going to be fine because they haven't been programmed yet. Little kids who are loved are going to be fine. They'll shift very easily. Adults are going to have a hard time. So, victim mentality is programmed, revolution is conscious. It takes as much effort to stay trapped as it does to rebel. So this is something that your experience is going to lie to you about. Whenever you ask, and I do this, so I'm no different than you, but whenever you say, how can I avoid this feeling? What you're wanting is to avoid death. Makes sense. So people who are trying to avoid feelings are going to tell themselves it's easier to stay trapped. Or they will buy into the victim mentality, or they will double down on false beings of light or reptilians or whatever, the reincarnation trap. They will buy into that and they will double down on that. But what's really happening is they don't want to put the effort in to have a different experience and die to what they believe is keeping them alive. And it's happening on an unconscious level, which is the sad part. Anyway. So it takes as much effort to stay trapped as it does to rebel. So in order to keep telling yourself that dark forces or false beings of light or reptilians or whatever are trapping you and the matrix and all that, it's true we're in a matrix. The thing that's not true is that you don't have any choice. It's not true that you can't decide to free yourself here and now. That part is not true. But you will rebel against the truth that you are God, that you are infinite, that you chose to be here, and that you can choose to ascend if you're willing to go through the ego death. You will fight against that belief because, again, you believe that your survival depends on it. And so people who don't want to die will double down and hold on to the victim mentality. It takes just as much effort. I might even argue it takes more effort to do that than it does to surrender to the ego death and seek to go beyond it. It's impossible to avoid the choice. You must choose. We talked about that already. The energy that's hitting us is forcing you to go in one direction or another. You can't just stay where you are. This is why people are flipping out. People are flipping out because they don't want to change. That's understandable. Nobody likes to change. But I've seen people that I knew that I thought I loved and who I thought loved me is what I meant to say. People who I thought loved me. They recently, last year, I went through it for a whole year. There was a handful of people that completely, totally flipped on me and started attacking me in the worst possible ways. I've never been so horribly personally attacked in my life. And it's because of this. I represent the path of Odin. And where they are is they're in a lot of pain and they're frightened and they don't want to change. And so my presence, in fact, one person said, your frequency bothers me. Now they were trying to say something else, but I went, yep, that's right. My frequency is going against yours. You have a 3D frequency, I'm pushing to a 5D frequency. They don't, oil and water doesn't mix. They're gonna separate. So there's no avoiding this choice. So just accept that. Now, if you're conscious enough and you realize that the victim mentality is as much a choice as the freedom mentality, then you'll go, well, I might as well choose freedom. Let me give you another example. There was somebody I knew. I was in group therapy for years and I stopped going because therapy by itself didn't do anything. If people didn't have a plan of action outside of group therapy, nothing changed for them. So there was one person who was there, and this person didn't take any action, didn't have any plan of action outside a group, didn't have any spiritual practice or 12 steps or anything like that. By the way, 12 steps to 5D, if you want help, do 12 steps to 5D on my channel. But this person, was in a very abusive relationship, which again is programmed. They've been programmed to get their love by being abused and getting their approval from their abusers. And this person wouldn't take the actions, and group would go to rush to save this person and say, do these things and get out of that relationship and move out, and we will be there. I even said, listen, I'll go. There was an abusive narcissist that was, threatening her to, guilting her into staying. And I said, I'll go with you. I trust you. If I stand between the two of you, that person's not going to say a damn word. You can get your stuff and move out, and I guarantee you that person won't be able to stop you, because I'm the last person you want to mess with. And I will be more than happy to defend you. And they said, no. A person didn't change. But one time they came to group and this person was crying and was very upset because of the abuse, and said, I feel like such a loser, I can't leave. And I said, so what you're doing right now is painful, right? She says, yes, I'm in pain. So you don't like where you're living. You don't like being abused. No, I can't stand it. All right, but packing up and leaving is frightening. She says, yes, I'm too afraid. I'm really afraid of his anger. I said, so no matter what you do, it's going to be painful. She says, that's right. I said, so since it's going to be painful no matter what, if you do nothing, it's going to be painful. And if you pack up and leave, it's going to be painful. I said, why not do the painful thing that will get you what you want, since you're going to be in pain no matter what? And that's what I'm telling you. It's going to be painful, especially if you've been abused, if you've been programmed. Some people are more programmed than others. We'll talk about that a little later in the video. But if you've been programmed to be abused, it's going to be painful for you to rebel against this 3D collective slave mindset. But since if you do nothing, it's going to be painful, so you're already complaining about it, might as well take the path of pain that's going to give you relief, that's going to give you freedom, that's going to give you joy, that's going to give you bliss. You've got nothing to lose. You're already miserable. So even if you don't have the experience and you're just trusting what I say, but trust me, if you take these actions, you will find bliss. Even if it's that, what have you got to lose? You're going to be in pain no matter what, right? So go take the path of Odin. Take the path of Odin. Sacrifice yourself to yourself. Go through the pain, and then screaming, you can take up the runes, and then you will become king or queen of the gods. It's guaranteed if you do the work. All right. So those are the list for today. Ascension is not salvation; it is earned. 5D ascension is attained through ego death. 5D residents are 3D traitors. 5D is a revolution. You must choose between love of self versus love of the collective. Victim mentality is programmed. Revolution is conscious. It takes as much effort to stay trapped as it does to rebel. It is impossible to avoid the choice you must choose. By the way, the choice between love of self versus love of the collective. You know what I heard one of our presidential candidates say? You can probably guess which one. This person said, I am all for the collective. And I went, I know you are. Anyway, you can probably guess which candidate that was. So let me now read to you a quote, because I'm going to address perhaps some feelings that you have. I won't read the whole thing, but first, again, let me just acknowledge that if you're in pain, if you're frightened, if you think it's impossible, if you believe that there are higher dimensions, if you believe that the universe wants to destroy you and that the universe doesn't care about you, your feelings are coming from your honest, real experience. I don't want to gaslight you out of your thoughts, your feelings, and your experience. But the question is, can that experience change? It will only change if you make the decision to do some things that are going to be frightening and go against your mentality. So I'm going to show you here somebody who thinks that they're out arguing me, and I'm going to show you that what they're really saying is that they want to stay trapped and they want to stay a victim. And they're righteously defending, which you have the right to stay victimized, but they're righteously defending their choice to stay a victim. So this is in response to my recent video, Solar Flash Update, of August 12th, 5D Earth is almost here. This person starts out by saying, first off, I can tell that this person probably didn't watch the whole video. If they did, they didn't listen, because I addressed a lot of these things. The person says, in order for any human to believe in a loving universe or the event that's going to ascend humanity to a higher plane of existence, you have to ignore so much of your actual life experience. They go on to say, you have to ignore millions and millions of humans that were brutally murdered and are being murdered every day. Continues to say, you have to ignore that in actuality the universe does not give a crap about any human's life, and thus human existence is not valuable, even to the source that gave humans their lives. In other words, that God doesn't care about you. Now, here's what I know about this person. First off, do you have that experience? I have that experience. I felt like that. In order to have the life that I had to consciously act contrary to my experience. Again, I told you in a previous video that I didn't have any experience of it, that my critical thinking led me to the conclusion that an unjust universe wouldn't survive. So my experience that the universe is unjust has to be false, at least to some degree, because the universe wouldn't survive if it was unjust. So I said, if we live in a just universe, and I walked it through, then I said, then I must have created this universe, and I must be God. And if I adopt that and take responsibility for my life, no matter how bad it is that I created it, then if I choose only what makes me happy, and I commit to that, then the universe has to give me that, because I created it and I'm God. Now, I didn't know that was true. But I didn't have anything to lose. My life was already miserable. I was already broke and on the verge of homelessness and miserable and everything. So I didn't have anything to lose. So I committed myself to that unproven belief, and then to my absolute surprise, it turned out to be 100% true. And it's now been proven, because I've gone to 5D. It's not only true, it's true times 1 trillion. And it's amazing that I figured it out. But the only reason I figured it out is because I didn't have an emotional attachment to the truth. This person does. This person who wants to tell you that the universe doesn't love you has a very strong fear-based emotional attachment to their belief. And they want to hold on to their emotionally attached belief more than they want to be happy. So you have to ask yourself that. Do you want to be right, or do you want to be happy? Pick one. You want to be happy? I can teach you how to do that. You want to be miserable? Nothing I can do for you. So this person says, in order for any human to believe in a loving universe, etc., you have to ignore so much of your actual life experience. That's not true. There are people who have, now here's what I know about this person. This person doesn't have the guts to say it, because this person isn't self-examining. But if this person were self-examining, this person would say, I had a really crappy childhood. My parents didn't love me. It's really hard for me to love myself. And therefore, it's hard for me to believe in a loving universe. So when he says, in order for a person to believe in a loving universe, they have to ignore so much of their life experience. That's true. You do. In order for you to believe in a loving universe, you have to ignore or work against your programming to believe that you are worthless, because your parents told you in order to be loved, you had to accept being a worthless piece of crap, and you have to accept being abused. If you do that, we will accept you. You will be part of our family. And you got punished if you tried to believe in yourself. That happened to me. That happened to me all the time. My mother told me to my face when I was an adult. My mother told me to my face, you wouldn't get anywhere without me. Without me, you can't survive. My dad did the same kind of thing. My brother did the same kind of thing. I was programmed to believe that if I wasn't a failure, I wouldn't be loved, because that's the message. So I already know that this person got that message as a kid, because their experience is that they are miserable and unloved, and that the universe, therefore the universe doesn't love them. So it is true that in order for any person who's been abused, in order for any person that's been abused to believe in a loving universe, they have to ignore much of their own life experience. But that's not true for everybody. Now, he wants to say that everybody has to feel this way. So he's projecting his experience onto the rest of the world. But there are millions and millions of kids right now who are being loved by their parents. I see it every day. And sometimes it makes me cry, because I didn't have that. There are parents that really love their kids and make their kids feel special and make their kids feel loved. And if you've ever watched the shows, like the music competition shows, The Voice, or whatever those shows. If you ever watch those shows, what'll happen is there will be usually one or two incredibly talented singers who are unbelievable. Like when they sing, it like brings you to tears, because, oh my God, the feeling and the beauty and all of that, but they never win. Why is it that they never win? And then when you get to the interviews of them, you'll find out, yeah, my mom was a drug addict, and and so they lived this horrible life where they were neglected and or abused and unloved. And so right when, they're ready to win, and the judges are like, this is yours if you want it, they will go up and they'll forget the lyrics, or they'll screw up, or and then the judges will say, I wanted to give it to you, but based on your performance, I have to give it to the other person. Now, the other person's a talented singer, but they're nowhere near as genius as the damaged individual. But what's happened is that the whole family shows up, and the mom and it makes me cry thinking about it. The mom and the dad and the kids show up, and they have, little placards that say, you can do it, Johnny. And Johnny is up there performing, and his family who loves him is there, and guess what? He wins. It's not because he was the best, it's because he believed in himself. So there are people who have experiences, and their experience tells them they are loved. And what happens to people like that when they run into difficulty? They lose a job, they get attacked, they get smeared, something horrible happens, they get in a horrible physical accident. They say, you know what? I can do it. Everything always works out for me. I'll figure it out. The person who wasn't loved, when something goes wrong, and this person, the first thing something goes wrong, they say, see, I told you, the world doesn't love me. The universe hates me. There's just no point. This is a worthless, I'm a worthless piece of crap, and the universe doesn't love me, and nothing I do will ever be enough. So that's not true. In order for you to believe in a loving universe, as opposed to what you say, in order for any human to believe in a loving universe, no, in order for you to believe in a loving universe, you have to ignore your own actual life experience. You say you have to ignore millions and millions of humans that were brutally murdered and are being murdered every day. No, you don't. In order to stay where you are, you have to ignore millions and millions of people who are loved and who are happy and who love others and are loved. Because in order to focus on the universe only hates everybody, you have to choose to not think about the people who are happy. Now, it may be that because, and this was true for me, it may be that your life was so horrible that you never got to see. You can't see it beyond your pain. You can't see other people's happiness. People who live in horrible conditions, people who live in, really horrible, poor conditions, they might never see anybody that's happy except for the elites that are abusing them. So no, that's not true. You don't have to ignore any of it. You do if you want to stay a victim. Now, I could go on and on and on. This person goes on. And of course, when somebody, writes a huge, novel in a comment section because they don't like what I've said, it means that they know they're insecure about what they're saying, so they have to say it over and over and over. So I'm not going to go into all of it. But instead of addressing this person's in a comment section, instead of addressing all of their arguments, which is a waste of time, because I'm going to tell you the truth, it's very likely this person won't shift. Not because they can't, but because they're committed to being miserable. And they're not committed to being miserable because it's their experience. That's part of it. They're committed to being miserable because if they choose to accept that they have value, and if they choose to accept that the universe loves them, they will have to unconsciously rebel against their abusive parents who they secretly want to love. This whole paragraph that this person writes about how you have to blah, 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 and anybody who believes in a loving universe is in denial, that whole thing is actually unconsciously addressed to their abusive parents. It's a way of saying, see, mommy and daddy, I'm not going to be happy. You'll love me, right? If I'm bad enough, if I beat myself up enough, mommy and daddy will finally love me. Don't believe me? Look at what happens in abusive relationships. When I was 15 years old, I'll never forget it. It's very sad. Back in the day when we didn't have cell phones, back in the 70s. And I was 15 years old and I was walking along the street with my friends, and this car passes us, and as it's moving, the passenger door opens and this woman gets pushed out of a moving car. She rolls on the pavement and then sits there, and the guy drives down the street. And we were in absolute shock. We ran up and surrounded her. We said, "Are you okay?" And then the guy stops the car and he backs up. And I stand there, I was a 15-year-old kid. I was just enraged, and he got in my face, and I couldn't do anything. He was threatening me. And thankfully enough, a bunch of other adults showed up who had seen what had happened. And everybody, women, men, everybody surrounded and protected her, pushed the guy down the street, and there was a few men that were standing there, telling the guy, you want to mess with somebody your own size. And everybody was saying to this woman, come with us, we'll take you to the police station, we'll take you wherever you want to go. You don't have to get back in the car with that guy. And this went on for probably a half an hour. She willingly got back in the car with him. And we all watched, knowing that he was going to abuse her, maybe kill her, for all we know. That's what I'm reading here. You, in your self-righteousness, telling me how anybody who believes in a loving universe is denying the experience of reality, and the experience has told me that the universe hates me and that God hates me, therefore it's true for all of you. I know you believe that, but what you're really saying is you desperately want your abusive mother and father to love you, and you are going to self-mutilate to such a degree that hopefully someday God will turn around and love you. That's what religion is all about. That's what monotheist religion is all about. If you carry your cross and why do you think the guys in the Middle Ages used to flail themselves? Because eventually, if you hurt yourself enough, God will then say, thank you, I love you now. Because you're saying, you don't have to hurt me, I'll hurt myself for you. But if you have the balls, I don't think you will, sadly. I don't think you will. I don't think you'll make the shift. But if you have the balls to man up and say, I'm rebelling against the evil people that abused and hurt me, and I'm rebelling against this evil third dimension that is trying to convince me that I don't deserve to be happy and I don't deserve to have love. If you have the balls to say, screw you, I am going to choose to believe in my divinity. I am going to betray the human race, which is trying to tell me if I just knuckle under and take the abuse, I'll be loved. Because that's all that this is about. You have to choose. Do you want to be loved? Do you want to love yourself and be loved by the universe? Or do you want to be loved by the abusers? Make your choice. That's the only choice standing in front of you. This person sounds like they know the truth. This person sounds like they have strength to say the truth, but the actual truth is they are so afraid of dying to their ego that they would rather be abused and be a victim than escape. So I hope that you'll make the choice to escape. That is what the live guided meditation is all about. I also probably assume this person has not done the live guided interdimensional meditation, which we do for free every week, Wednesday and Saturday, 8:30 p.m. The reason I do that is so that you can experience for yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. In fact, I don't want you to take my word for it. I don't want you to believe what I say. I want you to do it and figure it out for yourself. And if you're having trouble having experiences and feeling the love, then do some work to die to your ego. Go and get, there is some, therapy does have some value to it if you have a practice outside of it. So if you're doing these meditations, but you're filled with self-hatred, go get some help. Go find a therapist. Do the 12 steps to 5D. If you've got an addiction, go to a 12-step group. Work the 12 steps. And do these meditations. Act contrary. The person who wrote that huge comment is not acting contrary to their feelings. The person who wrote that comment is allowing their feelings to dictate their actions and dictate their beliefs. Nobody became Mr. Olympia by sitting outside of the gym and watching other people work out. You have to get your ass in there and you have to push some weight. If you're going to evolve, you have to be willing to do the work that Odin did. You have to be willing to die to yourself, to do the difficult thing, to be willing to love yourself. And when you go to higher dimensions, because the light beings will take you as far as you're able and willing to go. And when you go to those higher dimensions and you experience that bliss, when you come back, guess what? It's going to be traumatizing. It's not going to be like, the way people want to express it in the New Age is, or in the, Zohar the Magnificent, who, what is it? The law of attraction. Just focus on your feelings and your feelings will bring things to you. That's all nonsense. Because just living based on having your feelings tell you what to do is what the collective wants. Because it's much easier in the third dimension to make you feel unworthy and to make you feel frightened. It's very easy to do. What's hard to do is to choose to believe that you are more than this third dimension and then take actions. When you go off into higher dimensions and you experience the love, it'll be blissful, but then when you come back in your body, your 3D brain will go, that didn't really happen, I don't believe that, and you'll feel guilty, and you will then get angry at them. And you will say, these are evil beings trying to trap me. That's where all that nonsense comes from. But I can tell you from my experience, you can believe me or not, what is coming for us is unbelievably amazing, unbelievably blissful, if you're willing to die to yourself. Now, some people it's going to be harder than others. This person, it's going to be really tough because they've been programmed and they're so emotionally attached to their pain and their misery and their victim mentality. And I'm not judging them, I've been there. They're so emotionally attached to that, it will be traumatizing for them to shift and rebel against it. For others, those of you who haven't been traumatized as much, little kids, little kids are going to be fine. They're already happy. They're already living in, fantasies of unicorns and, angels, and they already live there. They haven't been talked out of it yet. But for those of us that have been talked out of that or been abused out of it, it's going to be harder. But that's what I'm here to help you with. So if you are one of these people that believes the universe hates you, I was one of those people too. And if you want what I have, you have to do what I've done. Go do the 12 steps to 5D. Do these meditations. Go to thunderwizard.com and do the practices. But you still have to be willing to change your negativity within yourself. I've run into people who've done the practices and they're not changing the negativity within themselves, and the practices aren't serving them. Now, they're a minority, but it does happen. People who are on drugs, practices don't help people who are on drugs. You have to change from within. You have to be willing to change from within. And if the practices themselves aren't doing it for you, the interdimensional meditation is an emergency. And if you go out in interdimensional meditation, I know because I've done it. If you go out in interdimensional meditation and you say, this is an emergency, I need help. I need you to help me. I need to feel love. I need to experience this. They will come and help you. But you have to ask for it. This person who wrote this isn't going to ask for it unless they change, because they're too attached. This person, I didn't even see this part. I'm sorry for myself this is what he says. I'm sorry for myself that I wasted all these years meditating and doing energy work, because I was under the impression that my meditations would actually make a difference in the world and that they would help humanity move to a more peaceful and loving plane of existence. I'm really sorry for myself that I wasted all these years believing in a loving God and a loving universe, when all the evidence points to the contrary. There you are. I don't have to say it. This person is saying, I feel sorry for myself. I have a victim mentality. And unfortunately, there are some people that won't let go of their victim mentality. I think I have an idea of who this person is. I might be wrong, but I think I know who this person is. In any case, I'm so sorry for that person that they're going through that. But even that person can choose. But you've got to take the contrary action. In any case, that's it. I hope that's been helpful. Listen, what's happening on Earth has to stop. And I'm committed. I am now committed. The rest of my life in 3D, the rest of my life is going to be committed to destroying this third dimensional reality. Everything I have in me, I'm going to put into destroying it. So yeah, I'm going to war against the third dimension. And if I have the ability, I'm going to take it down. I'm going to tear it down. You want to join me? Maybe you're not a warrior. Maybe you just want to spread love. That's fine too. That'll tear it down as well. Whatever your proclivity is. I'm a fighter, so I'm going to go and fight. You want to come with me? Great. Way to support this channel is to subscribe, like, comment, hit the bell button. Do the live interdimensional meditations as often as possible. Follow and like Path of the Thunder Wizard on Facebook. Share Thunder Wizard YouTube video links and Facebook posts on all of your social media. Subscribe to the thunderwizard.com Patreon site. Not just the free, go beyond the free and get something out of it. That helps you and it helps me. While we're still in 3D, without you, I can't keep this channel going. I need you and your support of this channel in order for me to keep doing this. Browse the thunderwizard.com shop for the advanced practices, and please remember that I do need your support to keep this channel going. Whatever you do, do the interdimensional meditation. That's the most important thing. We are changing this world. I'm seeing it. I'm watching it. The things that are happening in this world are happening as a result of what we're doing in these meditations. All right, that's it, my friends. I love you very much. Please know that you are the most important being that has ever existed. You are the most powerful being that has ever existed. You are more loved than you can possibly imagine. If you were to feel the love that the higher dimensional beings have for you, you'd explode. You couldn't handle it. But just know that it's true. And if you follow your soul and you do what your soul wants more than anything else, if you do what your soul wants, you live for your own personal happiness and your own personal fulfillment, if you live that way, you will evolve, and all other conscious beings in the universe will evolve, and the gods themselves will get on their knees and worship you. I thank you for creating this universe. This universe was created solely for your personal, selfish pleasure. And I thank you for creating this universe, and I thank you for creating me and allowing me to live in it. Having said that, my friends, I love you very much. I'll see you guys tomorrow, Wednesday, for a live interdimensional meditation. Until then, please be very good to yourself, and I will see you all very soon.